Do you think there's a such thing as right and wrong and morals, um, without like faith or like a religious background? Because like, if you're a sinner, what does it matter?
Basically, is there a universal right and wrong?
Is there a right and wrong without there being an authority to determine there's a right?
Yeah, these are the universal right and wrongs. Now everything still evolves beside of a person's belief system. So you can navigate from belief. Nature itself, what we call these, is not so much right and wrong. It goes into like the law of existence. So the law of existence is the law that breaks down the right and wrongs of each thing. What it is that you value. If you in a position where you go to an ocean, and you jump off into the water. Now the water and the oxygen and all these other things, there's right and wrong. Well, it's not necessarily right and wrong, but there's a law of existence that lives inside of it. If you want to exist, then you will not go too long without breath. You will, not take a leap of gravity or nothing too far. So these laws will keep you kind of bound into what, if your goal is to be alive, then that will become wrong. So it's wrong for you to be submerged inside of water for X period of time if you are somebody who want to live. If you don't want to live and you're trying to kill yourself, then it may not be wrong to be submerged in water over a period of time.
Well, I don't think self-preservation has anything to do with right and wrong.
What do you mean? But you use the word, like, what is the difference?
Preservation?
Yeah.
Preservation means,
Save yourself?
yeah, like your wants and need to exist.
Right.
That's preservation.
No, what I'm breaking down is the relationship between how a person can perceive right or wrong, based off of basically what they believe. So we have universal laws, and that's what I'm trying to use, the universal laws to exist. So let's just say water. Now, overall, for you to be submerged underwater for too long, as far as it pertains to your life, then it will go against your life. Breaking that law will go against your life. Based off of the value that you have of your life and the way you set your values, and being submerged underwater for too long could be wrong.
I disagree, because self-preservation is a human instinct. Like,
You say self-preservation. Let me define that self-preservation.
Okay.
Definition of self-preservation: the protection of oneself from harm or death, especially regarded as basic instinct in human beings and animals. So basically, let me say this statement, and maybe this is something I can take up. There's no such thing as right or wrong. There's only agreeable and disagreeable. Right or wrong is based off your morals and values. If you go on a more universal scale, like the Creator as it pertains to life and God, there is right and wrong. But right and wrong is all based off of the perspective. Again, it may be wrong. The same thing that's wrong for one thing can be right for the other, even though inside of, when you adopt any type of moral, then you adopt guidelines, So you start with chaos, you start with nothing, and moral brings in the guidelines that you have to abide by to stay in, I don't want to just say existence, but for things to work in its function. So there are right and wrongs.
Well, peep this. In the beginning, there was just Adam, and Adam could do whatever he wanted. There was only one thing that God told him he couldn't do.
Right. I'm pretty sure that there was many things that God had him do. God told, whenever you tell whenever you tell somebody what to do, you also telling them what not to do. Inside of the statement of breaking down what to do. That's one thing. So if I tell you to be nice to your sister, I'm also telling you don't be mean to your sister. So there's laws and boundaries that Adam had that was set up, you know what I'm saying? For him to be an overlooker of the guard, don't neglect his guard. Don't which is the same thing vice versa from the basically do's that don't. For dudes, there's the don't. So for one of the things that we do know is that he was told not to eat of a specific tree in the garden.
God only told him, he told him he could do all this other stuff, but he just told him, don't eat of the tree. And that was, other than that, Adam pretty much had free reign to do as he felt. Now, if Adam hadn't have messed up, all these other things that we say is right and wrong probably wouldn't even exist.
Well, think about it. Adam had a right and wrong based off the moral compass that he had. You know what I'm saying? His moral compass was to obey God. Based off that moral compass, it's wrong to disobey God. You know what I'm saying? So that goes back to, if we take an overall, we can say that there's no such thing as right and wrong. There's only such thing as agreeable and disagreeable. And right and wrong is based off of our moral values, principles, and morals. You know what I'm saying? Universally, there are universal rights and wrongs, but that's looking out of a specific kind of lens. Because life for life, there's things that are wrong to life.
Says who?
Says life itself. If you climb that tree to the top, shit is wrong for you to jump down top of that tree to your death. Life is seeking to live. Now, that's why I said that's what it go based off the morals, because at the same exact time, if you trying to kill yourself, that shit is lawful. Go ahead and do it. You know what I'm saying? But life itself is gonna tell you what's wrong based off of if it wants to live. So if your priority is to live, there are things that are wrong.
So morals and values is only based off of what God says?
No, moral and values is based off what you believe.
And do you think we have beliefs without any outside influence?
Do we have belief? Yeah, of course. As soon as we start to take on information.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, all of our values are based off of the information that we get.
Right.
And all the values and all the information that we get is based off of history. And all of history started at one place.
Not necessarily. Let's take a child who is inside of a TP, and they don't have no history. Nobody's telling them about yesterday or nothing. But they still set a governance inside of that TP that child living in. That information will start to produce rights and wrongs. Outside of information, we like babies. We empty. We have nothing. We can't talk. We can't do nothing. As soon as we learn a language, we learn right and wrong. You know, because there's a right way to speak, there's a wrong way to speak. At the moment when knowledge is taken in, there's boundaries to knowledge. There's governance to knowledge, especially when you're dealing with, like, the reason why I said language. If you're thinking about language, before a baby can get into anything, a baby first is learning the basics: how to walk, how to talk, how to communicate, right? When it comes down to teaching the baby how to communicate, there's a right and wrong. How to walk, there's a right and wrong way to walk. When you're teaching the baby how to communicate, there's a right and wrong way to communicate. So based off the drive for what you're trying to do, and the moral, the way you hold your value system, that's what's gonna accumulate your right and wrong, your compass, your moral compass. So your moral compass is like a learned behavior, although there are universal rights and wrongs, but it all still depends on what your objective is. Again,
I still don't understand the universal, because everything is subjective.
Well, see, here's the thing. It's universal in the aspect of life is going to abide on its terms. You know, life is going to abide on this term, but you can still go against the terms of life, which will change your moral compass. So just like that, if your goal is to live, right?
Let me ask you this. Do animals and insects have morals?
Yeah.
And how can we measure that?
If a fly come getting on something, you start moving towards the fly gonna fly off and run from it. You gonna run from it. You know what I'm saying? The safety mechanism, because that fly is after life, its safety mechanism is gonna give it a compass that's gonna tell them what is and what ain't. What should be done, what shouldn't be done. What's the right thing to do, what's the wrong thing to do. You know, just like my dog. You know, my dog knows when she done did something wrong. Before I could come downstairs and not even be doing nothing. As soon as I walk in, I can look into her, she'll have one of them, oops, I know I did something. Type of vibes. You know what I'm saying? You look at animals in the jungle, they still working off of a system. They still sitting back and dealing inside of the rights and wrongs for survival. You know, if survival is the objective, then there's a right or wrong way to do it. You know, so yeah.
So if animals and insects and every living thing has morals and value, that means it's wrong to kill any living thing, right?
To the thing that's being killed, probably, unless that thing want to die. Because just like this, doing the wrong thing that lands you in jail. And I know people who they almost striving to get locked up. because they know that when they get locked up, that's when they gonna receive their reward. Let's say somebody gang back, and the reward for all of the work they putting in is that they gonna be a chief. They gonna be a person who can give word, who gonna do this, who gonna do that. You know, there's people who gonna go all out their way to do what they can do, so they can go ahead and get their time, so they can come out on top, and they can be a group. They can gain that status. They can gain that ranking. So to where everybody else says wrong, do this, that person will feel like, yeah, that's wrong, but in this situation, it's right. So these are the variables of right and wrong. This is why moral and values come into the place. Anything striving to live has a moral compass. Just off that wrong. If something is in a progression of life, or is inspired to live, which we just like this, we naturally have fear. You know, what are we afraid of? You know, usually death is one of the things. Moving outside of existence is a thing. If the motivation of living lives in you, it automatically gonna bring about the laws of certain laws of right and wrong. Because anything that goes against your life will be deemed wrong.
So if a person who goes to jail and like they want to go to jail, and other people they go to jail but they don't want to go to jail, then there's no such thing as right and wrong.
That's what I said. There's no such thing as right and wrong. There's only agreeable and disagreeable. Right and wrong only come when you include your moral compass. But there are universal rights and wrong because existence. So, and when I say right and wrong, let's put some parameters on it.
Yeah, okay.
When I say right or wrong, I think about possibly the favorable and the unfavorable thing to do. I think about breaking the law, you know, like, or sinning against a concept. When you sin against your own concept, then that's considered wrong. Or whatever concept you adopted. If you adopt any concept and you go against that concept, then that becomes wrong. Any concept that you abide in, that you agree with and abide in that concept, then that would be considered right. But that still is right and wrong based off objectives and morals. Internally, and it's crazy because I'm trying to divide them into two different things. One part I'm looking at is life in totality. You know, when we think about life in totality, it got boundaries. This will make me talk about the laws of existence. When you start to think of existence, things have, like a fish, right? A fish being out of water too long is wrong. You know what I'm saying? Or should we say wrong? Maybe there's another word to balance out. Maybe it's not wrong, but it goes against the law of that fish's existence.
Look up the definition of right and wrong.
Definition of wrong, not correct or true, incorrect. It also means unjust, dishonest, or immoral. Now, when you start to go into that definition, then that kind of brings you into it is right and wrong. Because when you start to think about dishonest, it don't matter what you believe. Dishonesty is dishonesty. You know, that's beyond your belief. So in the second definition, where you're speaking about dishonesty, if we're talking about a dishonest situation, then it's most definitely right and wrong. If you're speaking about what's true and what's not true, then that's going to be based off of moral. You know,
Did we look up moral?
Definition of moral? Starting with the principles of right and wrong behavior.
Oh, you just circle back on itself. You ain't got no second definition?
No, but I know moral is about right and wrong. I know that moral is about what's right. It's your system, your belief system as it pertains to right and wrong, or good and bad. So I know that's moral.
So there's no way to define right and wrong.
If you're dealing with honesty, if you go into honesty, then yeah, you can. And it is a way to define right and wrong, especially inside of the person's own beliefs.
Well, there's no way to universally define right and wrong then, because that's all subjective.
If you go into dishonesty, then that turns into what's universal.
But there are people who are pathological liars, and they feel like what they're doing is right.
Beyond what they feel. Let's just say this definition. If we take this definition,
because according to that liar's moral, the pathological liar's morals, they're not doing anything wrong.
Right. But
so there is no such thing as right and wrong.
But if we speak about, if let's just say the definition of wrong was dishonest.
What's the definition of right? I'm guessing it's just gonna say correct.
It's two definitions. One definition is morally good, justified, or acceptable, and the other definition is true or correct as a fact, which makes sense. That's right. That's true. Mm-hmm. Or that's wrong. That's not true. So a thing can be wrong if we go off the definition of the true and false. Because there are things that are true regardless of what you believe, and there are things that are false regardless of what you believe. So then that's going to bring about, no matter what it gets steps outside of your morality now, if you look into that definition. So that's the reason why you really can't answer it one-sided. It's a two-part thing that got to be answered in a way that there's no such thing as right or wrong, only as it pertains to your moral compass, your right or wrong, until you're dealing with fixed variables.
So the only way for there to be a universal right is for there to be a universal truth.
Yep. And there are many, like the laws of existence are universal truths. That's what I was trying to break down inside of the what's the name. If you are striving for life and this goes against the law of existence, then that's wrong to your life. And it's almost beyond what you look at, but to your life, that's wrong. Because this is the whole concept of sin. You know, the whole concept of sin is getting away from life. Sin is a movement away from life. You know what I'm saying? Another way to say that, sin is deviating against God, which is life. God's law, which is life. That's the reason why sin separates us from life, thereby bringing death. And by our eternal being eternal, then that brings about eternal death because of our deviation against his rights. When you're dealing with existence, you definitely got rights and wrongs, or more so like boundaries that keeps you in existence, that will allow you to live, or things that'll bring you to death. Right and wrong is like a two-part thing.
The choice about religious beliefs is extremely important because you're either following the truth or you're following a lie, and that is gonna mess you up.
You said that gonna mess you up? Yeah. The lie, all the time. A lie always moves against life. Lies are always separation against life. Even if it's just a small, gradual thing that ain't nothing big, it's still, this is why the sin of bearing false witness will move in separation from God. You know, that in your purest form being with God, at the moment you bear false witness, then you moving away from God at whatever the rate is or the distance.
Is there a way for us to judge what's the truth and what's the lie?
Based off our moral beliefs?
Based off of
facts?
Based off of religion. Like, is there a way to say that your religion is a lie?
Well, here's the thing. When you look into the makeup, and this goes back, now I'm going off into belief. This is a separate thing. It's not a universal thing. Going off the word.
Well, if the truth is right and right is the truth and only the truth is life, I'm guessing that's what we came up with, then it has to only be one thing.
What's that?
One religion. Like one.
Oh, it has to be one religion?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily one religion, but it has to be one God.
Right. Okay.
Because you can have 3 or 4 religions that still serving the same God, which is kind of like the situation with the way the Abrahamic religions kind of like fall under. Even those are broken up in values, just like this. Now, of course, you know, Jews is gonna reject a Christian in situations. Obviously, a Christian a Christian is not going against the Jews. The prophets and the Tanakh, the Torah, all of these things we hold as truths too. We don't have no disagreement with them. You know what I'm saying? We definitely disagree with the Muslims. Out of love, though, you know what I'm saying? It's some things that need to be tweaked.
All right.
But so being one truth as far as pertains to religion will just equate one God or one deity. You know what I'm saying? But here's the beautiful thing. Well, here's the thing inside of specifically Christianity. We have it known that the Lord have hidden his truth from certain ones, and he's chosen his people that he revealed himself to, you know? So even for us, we may feel that a person who's not living right or not doing right is right or wrong in our eyes. This is why God tell us it's not for us to judge, because for his grand scheme of things, it's necessary for that just as well as this. Then that's how we start jumping to these different levels of truths. Of what's false. Now, there are certain truths that you will be held subject to regardless what you believe. You know, you can deem whatever you want to be the truth or to be the lie or to be right or wrong, but there are some things that no matter what you believe, it's just going to be what it is. And then you got to come up with whether it's right or wrong for you. You know what I'm saying? But it's truth. So now when I look into right and wrong, it seems like it's safe to say that right and wrong bears truths and falsehoods but truth and falsehoods don't always have to be right or wrong.
Say it. What?
So when you're speaking in regards to right and wrong, you usually talking about truths and falsehoods.
Right.
No matter what you say, if you're dealing with right or wrong, you're dealing with truths and falsehoods. But you can deal with truths and falsehoods without dealing directly with right and wrong. Just like this, basically saying that there could be an overall truth that governs the people no matter what they believe, but they can still believe it to be right or wrong. God, prime example. No matter what God believes, especially coming from our faith, you're going to meet the Creator. And no matter what you believe, you're going to be subject to whatever his actual laws are or whatever his actual guidance is. Now, even though this gives us a perspective on what's true and what's false, but as it pertains to right or wrong, it's up to you to believe whether this God is right or whether that God is wrong, or whether this is right or whether that's wrong, based off what you believe. But it don't change the fact that this is true, if this is true or not. If you feel that it's right to believe in a falsehood, then you can find yourself believing in a falsehood, but it don't necessarily mean that it's right or wrong based off of whatever you believe. So when you're dealing with right and wrong, you're dealing with a falsehood or a truth. You saying whether something is true or false. But when you're dealing with true and false, the subject that's going to deem it to be right or wrong may not be working off that same scale.
So the personal or the
truths and falsehoods are universal, and rights and wrong they can be universal, but they more so personal. What was the word you just used?
personal.
More personal.
So to answer the original question, can right and wrong and morals exist without any kind of
God?
Yeah.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. And because it don't take God for you to have a system of beliefs.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You can believe whatever you want to believe, that ain't whether pertaining to God or not. And you can still have a this is right and this is wrong. Just like right now, you got some people who are atheists but still have systems of right and wrong.
All right. I think we locked that one down.